Greetings and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Exchange 2013 Anti-Spam and Anti-Malware Protection. No one would disagree that anti-spam and antivirus tools are a must for any messaging environment. That's a given. Now, in the past, with legacy versions of Exchange, that is Exchange 2010, 2007, we had anti-spam agents that were built right in. And those anti-spam agents typically resided on the Edge transport server by default. However, there was a way to enable these anti-spam agents on the Hub transport server. As you know, we no longer have a Hub transport server. So those agents have been moved over to the Mailbox server. So there are anti-spam features built into Exchange 2013. However, the negative is that Microsoft has made built-in anti-spam features more difficult to work with, although not impossible, by pushing configuration into the shell. At the same time, the Exchange team has added in an anti-malware feature, so it's built right in. So we're going to spend some time talking about the anti-spam features, how to enable the agents on the Mailbox server, as well as how you might configure these, and we'll take a look at the new anti-malware feature in Exchange 2013. Okay, so let's get started. For starters, let's talk about the value of going with a hosted anti-spam solution as opposed to working with agents. So Microsoft provides the Exchange Online Protection, EOP, online cloud-based solution. And so Exchange Online Protection is the next version of Forefront Online Protection for Exchange. Perhaps that's a product that you've heard of or worked with in the past. Now, Exchange 2013 has more or less the same built-in anti-spam agents as Exchange 2010. I say more or less, but there are two that are missing, and there's a reason for that. With Exchange 2010, when you enabled the anti-spam agents on a Hub transport server, one of the agents was missing, the attachment filter agent. This was the only anti-spam agent that was not available for the Hub transport server, and you could only work with it on the Edge transport server. The connection filtering agent was enabled in Exchange 2010 on the Hub transport server. But now with Exchange 2013, both the connection filtering agent and the attachment filtering agent are no longer available. So for those of you who worked with the anti-spam features in Exchange 2010, the connection filtering agent is what gave us our IP allow list and IP block list capabilities. So you'll note that these are missing from the list of capabilities with Exchange 2013 because that agent is not moved over to 2013. So perhaps instead of saying that we have the same built-in anti-spam agents, I should say we have most of the anti-spam agents moved over from Exchange 2010. However, there is no longer a management interface for those features, and you have to do everything in the shell. So personally, I find this annoying. I think that the Exchange team could have created an extra tab in the EAC. If you enable the agents, the tab is there, and you'll be able to configure everything through the EAC. At this point, if it's all in the shell, that makes it extra steps, it makes it more annoying, and that's not what PowerShell was designed for. PowerShell was designed to make life easier in certain cases and to give us a more robust method of management through the command line, not make our lives miserable by taking away part of the GUI. But I digress. This is what's been decided, and so that's one of the reasons why you might find Exchange Online Protection or a third-party solution that is hosted to be better than the built-in anti-spam agents. An online cloud-based protection solution is easier to control and configure, certainly easier to configure now that everything is being done through the shell, and it's often stronger, easier to keep up to date because it's all being done for you, and so you don't have to worry so much about it. However, we'll talk about anti-malware in a moment, and what's interesting about that is that you can pair it with Exchange Online Protection. So there's no reason for us to use only one solution. We can use Exchange Online Protection to pair up with anti-malware, so we can also use it to pair up with the anti-spam settings in Exchange 2013. As far as the anti-spam agents that are available on Mailbox servers, now that things have been moved over to Mailbox servers and we no longer have a Hub transport server, we have the following. We have the sender filter agent, which compares the sender to an administrator-defined list of senders, or perhaps sender domains, who might be prohibited from sending messages to our organization. And then depending on the action that's been specified, it will take action on that inbound message. Next we have the recipient filter agent. This compares the message recipient to an administrator-defined recipient block list. If a match is found, the message will not be permitted to come into the organization. It also has the ability to compare recipients on inbound messages to a local recipient directory, and this will allow it to determine if that message is addressed to a valid recipient or not. If not, then the message is rejected. There's the sender ID agent, which looks at the IP address of the sending server and the purported responsible address, or PRA, of the sender, and that allows it to determine whether the sender is spoofed or not. So sender ID agent is very important. There's the content filter agent, which basically assesses the contents of the message. It looks through the message itself, and so the content agent will assess the contents of the message and then determine if it should be placed in a quarantine mailbox or if it should just be deleted. If the message contains information that appears to be spam but it's not quite sure, then it might quarantine the message temporarily until it can be determined if it is spam or not. And then we have the protocol analysis agent, which looks at the sender reputation. So sender reputation relies on information about the IP address of the sending server and also the sender reputation level, or SRL. This is calculated using different characteristics of the message and different tests that are performed on the message to see if this message is spam or not. So these 5 anti-spam agents, they're available on mailbox servers, but only if you enable the anti-spam agents. So let's talk about how we go about enabling these. The anti-spam agents are not installed by default on your mailbox server. It's hoped that you will use either an online cloud-based solution by Microsoft or an Edge Transport perimeter solution or some other appliance-based solution. So by not installing the anti-spam agents by default, and then by making it so that even after you enable them, they're not able to be configured through the Exchange Admin Center, Microsoft is sort of pushing Exchange admins to use another solution. That's not to say that the anti-spam agents don't work, but it's obvious that Microsoft is pushing us in the direction away from their anti-spam agents, in that they're not making it easier for us to work with them. In fact, they're making it harder for us to work with them. But in the event we decide to enable them anyway, we have to do this through the Exchange Management Shell. So in order to enable the anti-spam agents, we need to run the install-antispamagents.ps1 script. Then we have to restart the Microsoft Exchange Transport Service, and we have to specify the internal SMTP servers in your organization. In our case with SpyTech Prime, we only have a single Exchange server, so we only have to specify that one SMTP server. And not to worry, you'll see this in action when we get to this in the scenario, because part of the scenario for SpyTech Prime is that we are going to enable the anti-spam agents. But first, let's talk for a moment about the anti-malware protection that's built right into Exchange 2013. So something that's new for Exchange 2013 is the fact that we have a built-in solution to look for malware, that is, spyware and viruses, and it's enabled by default. Definitions, or updates as we call them in anti-malware speak, definitions are looked for every hour from Microsoft to see if anything new is on the horizon. So if a new virus or spyware becomes known and Microsoft updates the definitions, every hour the Exchange server checks in to get those new definitions to keep itself up to date. So it's really great to have this anti-malware feature built right in. Now, you can use it on its own, so you don't need additional solutions. You can use anti-malware protection and not go with another solution. You can disable the feature if you want. You can pair it with a cloud-based solution like Exchange Online Protection, or you can go with a third-party solution. And typically if you go with a third-party cloud-based solution, then you would want to disable the feature. So it's not something you are married to. You can certainly disable it if you'd like, You can use it all alone, or you can pair it up with Exchange Online Protection. That gives us quite a bit of flexibility there. Let's jump over to our server and let's take a look at the default anti-malware protection settings. So here we are on our Exchange server, and we have the EAC open. To get to our malware protection, we go to the protection feature, and here we see malware filter. Now you can note that we cannot add additional filters from here. You can see we just have the default that we can edit. We can actually create additional policies through the Exchange Management Shell, but we're not going to get into that at this moment. We'll stick with the default settings and the default scope. But we're not going to go into that at this point. We'll just stick with the default for now. And so if we just double click that to open it up, and so we open it up, and if we go to settings, from here we can look at the default configuration settings for this policy. So we see here malware detection response. It says when malware is detected in any attachment, select whether to delete the entire message or to delete all message attachments. Either way, you're going to have all of the message attachments deleted. So if the message is deleted, the attachments go with it. The difference here is that if you delete the entire message, then everything is gone. Whereas if you delete all attachments and you use the default alert text, it will remove all of the attachments, not just the one that's infected, but also any additional attachments in the email. And what will happen is a text file will replace those with the text inside that says malware was detected in one or more attachments included with this email. All attachments have been deleted. So this gives you at least the opportunity to go back to the person who sent it and say, hey, your attachments didn't come through because apparently there's some kind of problem in terms of perhaps spyware or a virus in the attachments. Now you can also delete all attachments and use custom alert text, and you can put that text in here. Now one thing to note is that if malware is detected in the message body, the message itself, the entire message, including all attachments, will be deleted. So no matter what option we choose, if it's not the attachment that's the problem, if it's the message itself, that message is gone. And that action is applied not only to inbound messages, but to outbound messages as well. Now looking at the next item here, we have notifications, sender notifications. So do you want to send a message to the sender of the undelivered message? You can do that. You can notify persons within your company if you notify internal senders, and you can notify external senders if you select this checkbox. So those are persons outside of your organization. It would seem to make sense that you would want to notify them in the event of a problem with their email. So you might turn those on. And then administrator notifications are here. Sends a message to the administrator of the undelivered message. So obviously, if the message is coming from someone on your end, you would want to be notified about that. So we're going to select the checkbox here, and we'll have the message sent to administrator@spytechprime.com. In addition, you may want to notify the administrator about undelivered messages from external senders. So if someone from the outside emailed into your organization and it contains some type of malware, the administrator may want to know about that as well. Then the message that gets sent, the default text is, this message was created automatically by mail delivery software. Your email message was not delivered to the intended recipients because malware was detected. In the event you don't want that default text, you could adjust it. You can put in a different from name and from address subject message, and then that's for internal use, and then you can have external messages as well. So you can adjust all of this within the settings here. So you can adjust all of these notifications from within the settings here. And so as you can see, there's really not much to this policy. It's pretty simple. We click Save. And now you can see a summary over here in the details pane regarding that policy itself. Let's jump back over to our slides and let's talk about the SpyTech Prime scenario and see what tasks we might perform within our environment with regard to anti-spam and anti-malware protection. Alright, so in our scenario with SpyTech Prime, we're going to enable the anti-spam agents on the mailbox server. and then we'll configure sender filtering to block emails from two different known spammers, as well as a domain and all of its subdomains. We're going to do that using the TechNet code that's provided to us. Then we'll review the TechNet settings to help us enable and manage additional agents. So we're just going to review those, peruse those through the TechNet site so that you have an understanding as to where to locate that information, and so that you can see that we are provided with direction on how to configure these various anti-spam agents, even though we're working through the shell and not through the user interface. After that, we're going to test the anti-malware settings using the iker.txt antivirus test file, and we'll see what happens when we send what appears to be a virus through our Exchange server. Okay, so let's get to work. Alright, and so here we are on our Exchange server, and we're going to install the anti-spam agents for the server. So we're going to do this through the Exchange Management shell. Let's open up the shell. And then as far as how we run the install-anti-spam agents PowerShell script, if we look over here, we already have it opened up in TechNet. There's an article entitled Enable Anti-Spam Functionality on a Mailbox Server. And what's nice about this is they give you the different commands right here at the bottom. So use the shell to run the install anti-spam agents PS1 script. Here's the command. We click copy. We go back to our PowerShell, we right-click and click paste, and then hit enter. Alright, so now it says the agents listed above have been installed. Please restart the Microsoft Exchange Transport Service for changes to take effect. So here we can see the different agents that we talked about. Content filter, sender ID agent, sender filter agent, recipient filter agent, and protocol analysis agent. And all of them are screaming for a restart of the Microsoft Exchange Transport Service. So let's just scroll down here. And to do that, we type in restart service MS Exchange Transport, all as one word. And we hit enter. Alright, and so there we go. So it took a while to stop, but then once it was stopped, it started up pretty quickly. So that's a good sign. That's how we know that everything is working okay. To not get an error message back is a good thing. Well, the last part is we have to configure our internal SMTP servers. So here, if we just scroll up, we type set-transport config -internal SMTP servers space the @ symbol, the bracket, and then add equals, and in our case it's 192.168.1.213. We close it in and remember to put the final bracket, and then we hit enter. And so all of this is actually part of the TechNet page. You can see here the 3 different steps, including the last one that we just performed. And then it says, how do you know if this step worked? So there are a variety of different commands you can run as well to make sure that the steps have worked if that's a concern. And so we can see that things are all set now. We have those agents installed. The only problem is if we go back to our settings here and we, let's say, click somewhere else and come back, hey, nothing's changed. And that's because, again, if we want to work with the different anti-spam settings and the different agents, then we have to do this through the Exchange Management shell. So let's just take a look at some additional TechNet articles that relate to this. We'll close this out. So we're going to manage sender filtering. And you can see that TechNet provides examples for how to do all of this, whether it's sender filtering, recipient filtering, sender ID, content filtering. And so for each of those, you can choose to manage, and it gives you the information. If we scroll down here for sender filtering, you can see the commands that you can use through the Exchange Management Shell. So even though it's not as easy as we'd like through a GUI interface through the Exchange Admin Center, it still is made easier for us through TechNet because all of the commands from the shell are listed here for us with examples as well. And we can always click copy to copy and paste them in and make adjustments. So we're looking at this here. We're going to do this from the Exchange Management Shell. I wanted to just show you that with all of the others, manage recipient filtering, again, we see how to do things through the shell when it comes to managing sender ID through the shell. So all of the different TechNet articles are here for you to learn how to enable and configure the different anti-spam settings based upon your needs. So let's focus on this one, the sender filtering agent. If we open up the Exchange Management Shell again, if we scroll down and we look at the different settings, notice we can disable sender filtering and we can enable it. Now, it's actually enabled by default. So once we set up the agents and we installed those, it is enabled. So we don't have to go forward and enable it before we move forward and start configuring. What we want to do here is follow the example that's actually listed right here from TechNet, and that is to configure the sender filter agent to block messages from these two individuals and then a domain and even subdomains. Let's just follow this exact path as is. In fact, we could copy it right here or even select it to make it easier. Click copy, and then if we look here, we right click and click paste. This is pretty much how you would want to utilize this particular anti-spam agent. So you could leave the information here. Obviously, this isn't going to help anyone because Contoso and Northwind Traders and Fabricam, these are all fake domains. But this is a fictitious scenario as well, so it doesn't really matter in this case. So if you did have individuals that you wanted to block, and if you had a specific domain or a domain with subdomains that you wanted to block, you can utilize this sender filter agent in order to do that. So we hit enter, and again, we have no warning messages coming back. We have no red text coming our way saying that this command failed, and we would hope not, being that we did just copy it right off the TechNet site. So we would adjust this to whatever our needs. If we had additional individuals we wanted to add, we could do that. We could change the settings here and add more persons, more domains, and so forth. You can see how you can add or remove entries without modifying any existing values. You can run the command this way, and it gives you a variety of different ones. So we do have quite a bit of flexibility through the shell if we wanted to adjust the use of this agent. Now, this is just the one, remember. Again, each of these additional agents can be configured through the Exchange Management Shell. Now, the next part of our scenario is to test our default malware settings. So if we go back to the malware filter, we know that we have it set to delete all attachments and use default alert text. We also have it set to notify administrator about undelivered messages from internal senders, and we have sender notifications on for internal and external senders. Now, there's one thing I want to mention about this test, and that is that we're going to leave it as is with delete all attachments and use default alert text, and that's because this is the part we want to see. We're going to send an email with a virus. It's not really a virus, but it's that text file that appears to be a virus. We're going to send it to the peter@trainsignal.com email address, and so we're going to be able to receive that email in the peter@trainsignal.com inbox, and it should change the message, take out the attachments, and put in the alert text in a text file. So we're going to see that part of it. What we aren't going to do is go back and take a look at notifications, and that's because these notifications do not work if we're doing this part. The only way these notifications work is if we delete the entire message. So that's just something that's important to note. It doesn't say it here, but that's the way they work currently. So we're going to test this, and what's interesting is there is a test that's provided. If we go back to the anti-spam and anti-malware protection, under anti-malware protection, under configure the default anti-malware policy, we can scroll to the bottom and notice it says, how do you know this worked? And it gives us information about how to establish a text file that is an antivirus test. So it says the text file is not a virus. However, because users often have the need to test that installations function correctly, the antivirus industry, through the European Institute for Computer Antivirus Research, hence the acronym there, has adopted the ECAR standard in order to meet this need. So I'm saying ECAR, it might be pronounced differently depending on where you're from. So what we're going to do is create a new text file and then name the file ecar.txt. We're going to copy the following line into the text file, and then what we're going to do is we're going to attach this file to an email message that will be filtered by Exchange 2013. Alright, so let's jump over to another end user's system and we'll see what happens when they send this fake antivirus test file. Alright, so here we are on Tim Berry's Windows 8 system. We'll go to our desktop, open up our folders, go into Documents, and we'll create that text file right here. So we right click, choose New, Text Document. We'll call it EICAR. And then we have to paste that information into it. So we're going to open up Internet Explorer. And we just did a quick search for that file. It brought us back here. So we have the text here. We can click Copy, Allow Access, and then we'll go in here and paste it. We click Save, and notice what happens. It says right away, Windows Defender is taking action to clean detected malware. So watch what happens in 1 second here. And it's gone. So Windows Defender goes right into action. It detects that there's a problem with that file and it gets rid of it. So that's a good thing, but it doesn't help us with our test. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our Windows Defender settings here. We're going to turn off real-time protection. And yes, we know our PC is now at risk. We're okay with that. We just want to get our test out there. Okay, and so now no problems with Windows Defender. We'll go to our Outlook and we'll click New Email. We'll send this over to my TrainSignal account. We click Insert, Attach File, and Send. And the email came into my TrainSignal account. Let me just grab that. You can see here that it stripped out the attachment, replaced it with this text file here. And you can see that it says malware was detected in one or more attachments included with this email message. So as the recipient, I was able to see that the message had been stripped. And so that's great. It shows that the malware filtering is working just fine. And so this is a great test. It's something that you definitely want to take note of. You can do a search for it. And it's not a real virus, but as you saw with Windows Defender, it treats it like one. So as you can see, we have anti-spam settings in Exchange 2013. On the mailbox server side, we have to enable them, enable the anti-spam agents, and then to configure them, we have to use the shell. With the anti-malware settings, we can do all of that through the Exchange Admin Center. There aren't a lot of settings. You can see that the default policy is there, and you can make those adjustments. And then based upon your adjustments and your settings, you can see how you can test it using this test file. And so, once you have all of your settings in place, perform the test to make sure that everything is working properly. So we hope you found this informative. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.